All right, today we're talking about artist statements. Now, I already posted a handout to this Celtic Online page with some recommendations for statements. So please read that before you finish this video. So if you haven't read it yet, just pause this, come right back. All right, so I'm not going to repeat all of the little recommendations I put in that form because you read it. So we're going to talk instead about why we make statements, of ideas around what makes a good statement and what doesn't. And then I'm going to read you some artist statements and then show you the artwork that corresponds with it. All right, that's the plan for this video. So first of all, why? The very literal reason that we write artist statements is because it's a way for people to know how to talk about your work. So curators will want these. If you ever have an exhibition at a gallery, the gallery will request your statement and also a short biography about yourself, a page or less, and they will take these two documents, read through them, cut out parts to include into a press release. And so you're creating these for people you're going to be working with, the curators or the galleries, and you're also probably going to put this on your website, and you have it there so that way people who are interested in your work can learn more about it. Okay. So what is it and what is it not? What should you include and what shouldn't you include in an artist statement? And that depends quite a bit on what your artwork is. So my general advice is to talk about that which is important. So for example, I don't talk about my biography in my artist statement at all because my artwork has nothing to do with who I am. And if you read my artist statement, you wouldn't even have any idea how old I am or that I'm a female. There's just nothing really about me. It's all about the work. Whereas somebody who does a lot of self-portraits or whose work is autobiographical, it would make sense for them to talk about details of their life in their statement. So your statement should completely support the artwork. If the artwork is funny, then it's okay for the artist statement to be a little bit funny as well, or to have an alternative kind of structure. But if your work is more straightforward, or if it's not funny, then making a funny statement just wouldn't make sense. So I suggest that you make the statement match your work in terms of its style as well. For the most part, a statement will just be about a page or less. Some places will request a full statement, about a page, and some places will request just a paragraph. And so you might want to have two versions of this. The version that you're going to turn into the class will be about a page long though. Okay. Something else not to do, please. Don't start I've seen so many students start their statement saying, I've been making artwork since I was a child, or I've always loved artwork. And it's like, okay, you made artwork, so obviously you like artwork. I think that kind of goes without saying. Just don't make me read that again. Try to get a nice hook at the beginning of your statement that will really entice the viewer to finish it, right, to keep reading it, just like you would with an essay. All right. All right, let's look at a few statements and analyze. So we're going to start with my own statement here. I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to ask you to pause the video and read it. So pause. Okay, hopefully I guess you've unpaused me at this point. And so you can see that in mine, I talk about, in the first paragraph, I'm talking about patterns because I use patterns in my work, and then I talk first about how it's both metaphorical and aesthetic, kind of what my patterns do for me. And then the second paragraph, I talk about the aesthetics, the flatness and volume, and how I use patterns to kind of push that figure-ground relationship. And in the third, I talk about the metaphorical aspects. So the intro paragraph tells you basically what this is going to be about, and then I get into the details in the next two paragraphs. That's pretty standard. And this is what my work looks like. So I think it is appropriate for the statement. You can see that there's a lot of kind of volume popping out past the flatness there. And in this one, it's more like the cornflowers are being hidden in the William, God, what's his name? William Morris print pattern that I painted on there. And here's another one. similar in terms of what I talked about in the statement. So I think this statement is appropriate for the work, and that's the most important. Okay, please pause this video again and read this artist statement by Pittsburgh artist Crystal Latimer. Okay, now you should have read Crystal's statement, and so you'll notice that it's pretty different than mine. It's a little bit more narrative, and it's very biographical, and that makes sense because her work relates in a way to her identity and her family history and places she's traveled and things like that. And so it's absolutely appropriate for her to include biographical information in hers, whereas mine, it just wouldn't make any sense with the kind of work that I make. Okay, so again, you want the statement and the work to work well together. So let's take a look at some of Crystal's recent paintings. And as I said, she is a Pittsburgh artist, and so you can follow her on Instagram, actually attend her exhibition, sign up for her mailing list, look up Crystal Latimer online if you're interested. So you can see in her work and my work, we both use patterns, and we both incorporate real things as well, representational things. So aesthetically, our work is a little bit similar, but in terms of the meaning behind the work, it's very different, and that's why the statements are so different. And there's a whole narrative element to hers that doesn't exist in mine as well. Okay. And now we have a famous artist who's passed away now, John Bolasari. And I'd like you to take a few minutes to read this, so pause the video again. Okay, you should have read the John Bolasari statement here, and you can see that this is very different in format to Crystal's and my artist statement. So this is a non-traditional format, and the reason that John Bolasari, and we'll see his work in a moment too, the reason that he made this format is because a lot of his work is based on statements. He'll have a sentence in his artwork, or he'll have a word in his artwork that's associated with an image. And so his work is very much about language and about concept. And his work is also very kind of punchy. And so I think it makes sense that his statement here is written like a manifesto, where it's like a bullet, 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 I want, repeated. And so I think that although this isn't the standard format where he would have paragraphs and speak in a normal manner that we would speak at a party or speak to someone in class, he instead has kind of created this alternate type of statement. But because it works with his artwork, it makes sense with his artwork, I think that it is appropriate in this situation, whereas it wouldn't be appropriate for most people. And so if you have a good reason for breaking the standard format of an artist statement, then go for it. Generally, you saw in the handout, I say don't use the phrase "I want to" in your work because it makes you sound uncertain and unsure. My goal is to whatever, or I want to whatever. It makes it sound like you're not sure if you've done it or not. You just hope that you have, and you hope that it worked. So I want you to sound confident. But it's really different the way that he's using "I want to." He's using it repeatedly, almost like he is talking about his aspirations kind of for the world, not necessarily just for one of the particular artworks, or his aspirations for himself as a person almost even, And so I want to show you some of his work. I like this piece because it reminds me of that phrase that I use a lot: "You must kill your darlings." Cut away, things that are unnecessary and continue to change. But not sure if that's exactly what he was thinking here. But not all of his work throughout his entire career involved words, but most of it has incorporated, or at least half of it has incorporated words. He is also known for this series, and a number of other series as well. So often he'll pair words with images that don't seem to make sense too. So I think he's such an interesting artist. I would definitely look up John Bolasari. I would encourage you to look up statements by artists that you admire. Now, one problem is that once an artist becomes really quite famous, they no longer have an artist statement posted on their website the way that emerging artists do, because their gallery would have taken over the process of being like their PR person at that point, and so their gallery would begin writing statements for them that is not in first person. It starts to write about them, you know, but they would have used their artist statements to create those statements about the artists on their behalf. So when you look up a particularly famous artist whom you admire, you might not see it written in the first person because the gallery is writing about them. So you wouldn't write yours that way. You wouldn't write it from second person. You're talking about yourself. You're not talking about yourself as if you were this disembodied person separate from you talking about yourself, right? So write it in first person, and but still look at the gallery statements for famous artists online too, because you'll get a sense of the way people talk about their work. All right. So if you have questions, let me know, please. And I look forward to reading your statements. You are welcome to turn them in as many times as you want as drafts to get my feedback before turning them in at the end of the semester. Thanks.